The Targaryen dynasty over Westeros lasted over 2 centuries before Robert Baratheon and his allies put an end to them. Things went south for their house during the reign of the second Aerys Targaryen, where Robert's rebellion invited many of the noble houses to fight for one side or the other. However, while the realm was in turmoil, House Lannister chose to remain neutral up until the very end, where they dealt the finishing blow to House Targaryen during the sack of King's Landing. In this video, I'm going to talk about the dynamic between Aerys and Tywin before Robert's rebellion, the role of House Lannister during the war itself, and how they came out of it all together. Aerys Targaryen reigned over Westeros for over 2 decades before he lost his throne to Robert Baratheon. The Lord of Castle Rock and the Hand of the King for most of his reign was Tywin Lannister. By the time the rebellion came around, there was already friction between their two houses and a strong sense of animosity between them. However, according to Maester Yandel, this is a stark contrast from the relationship they shared in their adolescence. Their friendship dates back to when they were both around 10 years old, after Tywin was sent to the capital by his father to serve as a royal page. From this point forward, it's implied that they grew up together at court alongside Steffon Baratheon. Furthermore, when the 5th Blackfire Rebellion went down, not only did Tywin fight side by side with Aerys, he was also given the honor of knighting him when the war was over. Afterwards, Tywin pushed himself into fighting against another rebellion back home, one that led to the extinction of the reigns in the Tarbecks to the benefit of his growing reputation. Although he was just 20 years of age, his campaign to make an example out of their two houses made him well respected around the realm. In light of his accomplishments, Aerys made him the youngest hand to ever serve when he came into power in 262 AC. Despite their history together, their partnership was questionable because of their contrasting personality traits. Aerys was on record for being charismatic in his youth, but unlike Tywin, he wasn't very smart, and although he was ambitious, he didn't have the drive or the discipline to see things through. On the other hand, Tywin was always a serious person. Even as a child, he had a stern, unforgiving personality. Like Aerys, he carried a strong sense of ambition, but he also had the will and the intellect to make things happen. In the end, their dynamic as the two men in power would mark the beginning of the end of their relationship. As Aerys descended into madness, it was Tywin who would compensate for his erratic behavior. In time, it became clear that Tywin was better fit to run the realm than Aerys was. While the king was focused on grand schemes that never came to fruition, Tywin was able to settle their debt, hold tournaments for the common people, and implement policies that won him the favor of many lords and merchants around the realm. Perhaps under a different monarch, the realm would have been able to prosper under Tywin. But everything changed when Aerys caught on to the idea that he wasn't receiving any of the credit for their success. From then on, he made sure to ridicule Tywin with every chance he had, often resorting to counterintuitive politics and public humiliation to put him in his place. Aerys would come to regret his behavior when it was time to fight Robert's rebellion. From a tactical standpoint, House Lannister was in prime position to be the deciding factor between the rebels and the loyalists. However, Tywin notoriously rejected the call to fight for either side until Robert emerged victorious from the Battle of the Trident. But it's likely that he preferred to help put an end to the reign of his old friend Aerys over guaranteeing his victory. The perception and the legacy of House Lannister are among the most important things in Tywin's life. So when Aerys sought to soil his name and reputation, he made an enemy out of his most powerful ally. This transpired over the course of many years, but it really boiled down to a few things, which involved Tywin's wife and his overall legacy. As cold as Tywin was with everyone else, the love he had for Joanna Lannister was deep and perpetual. According to Tyrion, his father never spoke about her, but it was common knowledge how much he cared for her. Despite their intimate relationship, Aerys disrespected them on multiple occasions by expressing inappropriate liberties during their bedding ceremony and making vulgar comments about Joanna in Tywin's presence. Not only that, but when she passed away giving birth to Tyrion, Aerys took pleasure in the idea of Tywin's suffering, which was rumored to be the last straw in their friendship. Even so, Tywin would later make a calculated proposal to marry his daughter Cersei to the Crown Prince Rhaegar. in what was most likely an attempt to not only make up with Aerys, but more importantly, bring House Lannister into the royal family. However, Tywin's proposal was rejected in embarrassing fashion, as he was also reminded by Aerys that he was nothing but a good servant. Furthermore, aside from sabotaging Tywin's succession legacy, Aerys also tried to ruin his political career and influence along the way. For instance, while Aerys initially sided with Tywin on almost everything, there came a time when he began to oppose his counsel regardless of the best course of action. Perhaps the best example of this was when Tywin advised Aerys not to meet with Lord Dennis Darkland in light of his recent defiance to pay taxes. This led the king into a trap that would escalate into the defiance of Duskendale, a historical sequence of events that lasted about half a year with Aerys held hostage. But despite his fault, Aerys suspected Tywin to have conspired the entire thing. Conversely, his suspicions weren't entirely out of bounds. While Tywin didn't plan for Aerys to be taken hostage, he definitely didn't have his best interest in mind. Considering the circumstances, Tywin may have sought a way to take Aerys out of the picture, knowing that he was better off with Rhaegar on the Iron Throne. It was reported that he was completely fine with storming the walls of Duskendale and risking Aerys' life to end the siege. After the conflict was over, Aerys was convinced that Tywin's plan was for Rhaegar to become king and take Cersei to be his queen. Furthermore, Tywin wasn't the only one on the receiving end of Aerys' agenda. It should be noted that anyone with a connection to him was in danger of being dismissed from their service or even denied from their posts. This affected many Westermen who were serving under the king, and even some members of Tywin's immediate family. In any case, after 20 years of service, Aerys had tainted Tywin's reputation, shamed him in public, and denied his resignation on multiple occasions. But his limit was met upon Aerys' decision to name his son Jaime to his Kingsguard. Although Tywin was working behind the scenes to arrange a marriage between Jaime and Lysa Tully, his son secretly wanted to join the Kingsguard to be closer to Cersei, despite them knowing their father would be opposed to it. Once Jaime pledged his sword to the Brotherhood, his potential as the future of House Lannister was all but over. At any rate, Tywin saw this appointment as another slight by Aerys, and upon receiving the news, he officially resigned from office. Tywin was replaced by Lord Owen Merryweather, who was by all means a considerable downgrade. Shortly afterwards, Lord Walter Went hosted a tourney that was widely regarded as the greatest of its time. The tourney at Harrenhal would also be remembered as one of the final catalysts for Robert's rebellion and the fall of House Targaryen. Many lords and knights throughout the realm were in attendance, including Jaime, Aerys, and Rhaegar. Tywin, however, was notably absent. It was at this tourney where Jaime was formally admitted into the Kingsguard, and also where Prince Rhaegar named Lyanna Stark as his new Queen of Love and Beauty. In the aftermath of the tourney, Rhaegar would abduct Lyanna, which eventually led the houses of Stark, Baratheon, Tully, and Arryn to start a rebellion. The rebels found common cause around her abduction and solidified their alliance through marriage pacts following the deaths of Rickard and Brandon Stark. Additionally, after decades of abuse, Tywin had good reason to oppose Aerys and side with the rebels, but he was held in check by Jaime's status in King's Landing. Although he wasn't held hostage against his will, Jaime was kept close to Aerys to prevent Tywin from supporting the rebel cause or making any moves against him. Once the rebel forces secured their decisive victory at the Battle of the Trident, Tywin marched to the capital with the intention of sacking the city in Robert's name. When he reached the Red Keep, he found that his son had already killed Aerys, thus finally ridding himself and the realm of the Mad King. Under Tywin's orders, his men brutally finished off the remnants of the royal family which remained in the castle. This order made an enemy out of House Martell for the next generation, but it ultimately won him the right to arrange a marriage between Cersei and the new king, Robert Baratheon. Had Aerys accepted his marriage proposal when he had the chance, perhaps House Targaryen would have changed the course of their history. Looking past the petty comments and the personal insults, with Tywin on their side by marriage, Aerys and the Targaryens would have been harder to overthrow. Nevertheless, After 20 years of serving a mad king who was actively trying to sabotage his name and legacy, Tywin was able to turn a new page with his daughter in the royal family. Although he's currently dead in the current timeline, Tywin remained a force to be reckoned with up until his death. Together with the influence of Cersei, the power and influence of House Lannister was arguably unrivaled throughout the realm among the major houses. On the contrary, upon Tywin's death, they haven't really been able to live up to the image he left behind, which is probably the last thing Tywin would have wanted. In any case, that's it for me. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this. Peace.